Hey, it's Maddie. Welcome to the Anti-Alienation Project. I know I'm not in my typical setup, but I just wanted to make a quick video because I was driving and I had a realization. I get a lot in the comments about negative things about the parent who alienated me. And I don't think my parent is a monster. I want to make that really clear. I don't think they're evil. I think that they're very mentally ill, that they're very sick. And I suspect from all the therapy I've done and the people in my life that I am the daughter of someone who has borderline personality disorder with narcissistic traits. Now, I'm not a therapist. Clearly, my parent has not received treatment and they are undiagnosed as far as I know. But if I had to guess, that's what I would say. I feel strongly that resonates in my situation. And I was thinking back to my parents' divorce and when their marriage started to go really downhill. I think that's when my parent with borderline personality disorder, untreated, split. And if you're unfamiliar, splitting is a psychological phenomenon from the research I've done. It seems like it happens when they're very stressed or they go through something that triggers their core wound. And I want to also acknowledge that people with this disorder and any personality disorder have been through intense trauma of their own. So I do have a lot of empathy for people with a personality disorder and empathy for people like my mom and my mom specifically. Anyways, I think that when she split and started to think in black and white terms with my dad that he was all bad and he was almost evil, when that started to happen, the reason why I was so caught up in the middle of it is because I didn't know that she was splitting. Clearly. I mean, I was 7 or 8 when the marriage started going really bad. And when she would have these splitting episodes, she thought my dad was like a monster without a soul, that he had a personality disorder, projection. And just imagine for a moment how scary that must be for a child. I think back to these moments where I was a kid and my mom was clearly splitting and seeing my dad in a black and white terms where suddenly he was a monster, he was terrible. And I'm imagining myself as a young child being so confused and starting to fall into her delusion, because what else was I supposed to do? What else was I supposed to do? My parents fought. My dad, he would yell back. Sometimes they would fight. And so I was starting to see him through this new lens of the delusion, of her splitting, of him being all bad, all terrible, monstrous. And then how confusing would it be once they divorce? The splitting is just all the time. He's completely bad, missing part of his soul, can't feel empathy, doesn't love you, doesn't care about you. These are the messages that I was getting. And my mom, here's the thing people miss. My mom, in my case, because I believe she is truly delusional, has a delusional disorder. I'm not saying that to be mean. It's what Dr. Childress refers to it as. She really does believe these things about my dad, or at least she did when it was all happening. And so in her mind, she wasn't lying to me necessarily. In her mind, he really was that bad. He really was that monstrous. That's why I was so terrified of him in life in general, because I felt so unstable in my environment with her. Now, fast forward, that just helped me make sense of what I went through, of how he could be so great and we had such a good relationship, and then how he could be so bad all of a sudden, because she was splitting and she forced me into her delusional splitting because I was a child and I didn't know anything different. I didn't know better. It didn't happen overnight. It happened over a period of years. I was broken down until finally I gave in. I had no more strength to fight whatever was going on. And then fast forward to puberty. And that's when I can look back and recognize, now that I know more about untreated borderline personality disorder, fast forward to puberty, and that's when my mom began to split on me. Once again, I have a lot of compassion for my mom And I just wish that she would heal. But that's when she began to split on me, and I was bad. I was the problem. And I was the monster. So, and then it just got worse through my teenage years. And when you're on the receiving end of that, by the only parent you have allowed in your life, it can really screw you up. It can really screw you up. So I just had this realization. It goes back to the shared delusional disorder and how, different paths can lead to the same outcome with this child psychological abuse. But in my case, that splitting that the borderline personality disordered individual does, the black and white mentality, and suddenly their core wound of abandonment, fear of abandonment is triggered. Then they split on an individual, whether it's their spouse, whether it's their child, and suddenly that child is all bad, or that partner is all bad. They're a monster, almost subhuman. So I've witnessed the splitting even when I didn't know what it was, and I thought that it was real and my dad really was that bad. I've been the target of the splitting throughout my whole life, especially now that I've been speaking about this publicly. And well, it really started once I decided to go no contact for a while. Suddenly I was all bad, and this splitting mechanism, before I knew what it was extremely confusing for me as the child of someone who goes through this. It's so confusing because in one minute they love you and they think you're good, that you're a good person. The next minute you disgust them, or they're so filled with so much rage at something that you didn't even do wrong, or just for you at existing. And for kids who have an untreated mother or father with this disorder in particular, I think it's really scary to go through that experience when they're splitting on their partner or when they're splitting on their ex, and you're brought into that pathological delusion. It's easier for the child, I believe, to go along and think, wow, my dad or my mom really is that bad, than to consider my parent is having some sort of mental breakdown and I'm unsafe. So I know that this family dynamic can look different for everyone. But if you suspect that your mom or dad or partner has primarily borderline personality disorder, possibly mixed in with narcissism or something else, but that's the primary thing they're struggling with, please don't blame yourself if you were the child who went through that. And if you were a parent, please don't blame your child for going through that. They are sympathizing with the parent they love. I was sympathizing with the parent I love. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was sticking up for my mom and standing up to injustice by refusing to go with my dad, because I truly believed he was that bad. I was made to be so afraid of him, because in her mind, he was completely dark all of a sudden. He was really that bad. And so the psychology of all of this is very complex. It's not so simple. And when I see comments and people arguing that, parents who do this, parents who manipulate their child to reject their other parent always know what they're doing. Nope. Not always the case. Maybe they have a certain degree of consciousness some of the time. Or maybe they have Maybe they are more of a dark triad, more of a antisocial personality disorder, and they do know what they're doing, but there is a possibility that they actually believe their own lies and they are simply delusional. I share all this because actually realizing this, and these are just the thoughts that I have on the way to the gym, simply realizing these kind of things actually gives me more empathy for her. And you might be thinking, you shouldn't have empathy for her. Why would you want empathy for her? Well, empathy for her is helping me heal. And that's what I want at the end of the day. I want to heal. I don't want to be angry at her. I don't want to be angry at anyone. I don't want to be angry at myself. I want to understand what I went through, what she went through, why it happened. And I want to forgive her every day. I have forgiven her and I want to continue to forgive her. I believe it's almost like a state of being. And it helps me have more understanding and empathy for myself as a child, for what I went through. Understanding that pathological splitting mechanism that goes on in that brain, I couldn't have escaped the ramifications of that. That was an incredibly volatile and terrifying experience for a child to be brought into. I can forgive myself more easily knowing what actually happened. So maybe this adds some insight for some people who have a parent who brought them into a similar situation. Let me know in the comments if you can relate to this at all. If you have a partner that you suspect has similar struggles. I just was thinking about this a lot, and I thought it was important to share, because going through that splitting pathological mechanism, I know I'm not using the right terminology here, but imagine how scary that must be for a child to be brought through that.